I said, you mean come from your heart?
Well, because I'm a country boy. I was raised in the woods. I was raised in the mountains, and everything I know is natural laws. So when it comes to academia, I went in and out of schools. I went to college a few times and left. But it's simplistic. But I don't know how to really make it professional. But
I think you came off very professional in that video. I don't think
really,
there was any. I
which
think
one
the
did
only,
you see?
The one on
the guy that had
Camelot.
the voice like, and then you and and then he was really dramatic in how
Camelot.
he talked. Yeah, the Camelot production guy.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I brought you some more. That I got mellowed out after that one.
Well, you were fine. It's like they would kept like asking you questions though that kind of took you from your. They
Yeah.
just let you talk. You would have laid it all out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's the feeling I got. But I thought it was good though.
So tell me about yourself.
Okay.
I know. I was like.
What's your name?
Okay, I'm Ralph Ring, and I I've been interested all my life in the. I've been curious all my life in why the forms of transportation and habitation seem to be dragging or being so slow and antiquated in structure and nature and fundamental inner structures that just fall apart after a while. And so I felt that habitation and transportation should be in one vessel. And the vessel should be able to, because I was in love with magnetism ever since I was a kid. And in true magnetism, levitation is simple. It's a natural. Nature takes billions and billions of tons of water up in the air and suspends it in levitation every season. And it's just a natural thing. And so when you're going with the laws of nature, it's quite simple to do these things. So I decided, well, all right, that's why I'm here. I want to see them go from what I later found was the uh, whimsical cartoons of the Flintstones to the Jetsons. I thought, yeah, well, that's where we should have been there. Why not? So so I progressed and started to design and build different prototypes of my own. And every time I'd get so far, curious things would happen. People would come in and change my whole setup. And it was, for some reason, it wasn't getting done. And I thought it was simply you just come in and do your thing, and it would be accepted, and you go. Well, it wasn't until later in life that I found out there are some uh, uh, there are some areas of the oneness, if you will, that are engaged in a monetary system that want to regulate and put meters on what's already free. We have the four elements that are free and abundant everywhere: the air, the water, the fire. Everything is already free, and why are they putting meters on these things when it doesn't have to be? They could put a rod in the ground and to the heavens 30 feet and draw the electricity or the magnetism into their homes and change all the 60 cycles and so forth that they have running their homes now, and run on free and abundant energy forever. You would never have to pay a bill. Well, the first time I talked about it, they thought I was the enemy. They said, well, we're investors in petroleum companies, and we're investors in real estate, and you say in magnetics you can't have an accident. No accident. Well, we're in insurance, you can't have that. So everywhere I went and told my story, they said, no, you're not one of us. You're the bad guy. You're not. So for years I thought, oh man, I better just be cool and stay under the radar. I better not say too much. So I went along. I finally went into the service In 1948, I went into the Army, and went eventually to Guam. And on Guam, I learned how to skin dive. So that's really saved my life, skin diving. I found later, because when the war broke out in Korea, we made the Wonchon landing in North Korea. We were the first ones to go in there to rescue the Marines that were stuck. And it was very, very unpleasant. The Army, I never agreed with the Army. I didn't like regimentation. I didn't like being told what to do. If they'd ask me, I'd be glad to do it. But as soon as they told me, I would create a resistance and wind up on KP duty or in the brig or whatever. They really, they didn't like my, so I was, I always had trouble. But as time went on, I got wounded about 4 times, and I got frostbite on both my hands and feet. And that finally got me back to Japan and got me back to the States. But when I got out of the service and decided, well, all the money that I had saved for my education, because I wanted to be an engineer, was gone. When I got out of Korea, there was no money left. So I said, well, I better go to work. And I looked in this was in San Francisco. I got out at Presidio in San Francisco. And I took a paper and I said, well, there's no ads for machine gunners or heavy weapons or 4 2-point mortars. What am I going to do for a living? And I didn't have I didn't have anything to stand on except my skin diving. And I said, well, I know how to skin dive. Well, run an ad, call yourself Skin Divers Incorporated, and you can do mining and photography and recovery, repair, and see what happens. Well, I did. I just ran a small ad, and overnight I got a tremendous response. And I, from that point, built quite a large diving business. Well, my folks lived along the coast in California. My dad was the president of the chamber and the port director of Santa Cruz, California. My other uncle was in Carmel, Monterey Carmel area, and he was a similar big shot in government and things. And my other uncle was in Newport Beach in Balboa, and he owned the Balboa Country Club, and he was very, very wealthy, very well off. But they didn't want me to come home unless I had something that they could be proud of. They didn't. So I didn't, and I had nothing until I started the diving business. But I built it up to where I was being called to do some pretty important jobs. So that gravitated me down to Newport Beach, and I got down there, and they kind of accepted me. They wanted me to go to West Point, and there was a whole bunch of things. We didn't get along. But anyway, I met a girl, and we got married, and started a family. We had a couple of children. And I was still diving. I was diving off the islands, Santa Cruz and Catalina and Santa Barbara. And there, one day, I'd stayed out for 2 or 3, 4 days at a time. And when you're raising kids, Mama gets kind of curious, where's Daddy? And so do the kids, so they wanted me to come home. And one day, a dive boat from U.S. Divers pulled up, and they had heard about my reputation, because I was kind of risky in those days, because I knew who I was and what I could do. I knew my tolerances and everything, so I took a lot of risks. They would consider them risks, and so they pulled up and said, "Well, we'd like to talk to you about getting into our R&D department. We'd like to see if you'd like to join us." I said, well, fine, I'll come in and talk to you. And coincidentally, this was U.S. Divers Corporation, and they were about a mile and a half from where we lived in the Newport Beach. We lived in Costa Mesa, California, and they were in just Costa Mesa, Santa Ana. And so I went in, and they said, well, no, you don't have to stay out at any long periods. You can be home at night if you want. Just get into our R&D department. Because I was always, in those days, I was always discovering new and different ways to do things. And I looked at some of their equipment, and I said, well, this can, and I showed them simple little things. So they really wanted me in the R&D. And I was out one day on a dive. I told them they had a wraparound mask, and they had distortion on both sides. So you'd look, and you couldn't see fully because of the distortion. And I explained to them by using resonant frequencies or temperatures in the cooling that we could smooth this out, and it would be clear along there. And they thought that was, wow, well, that's great, we'll try that. So I did that, and I was successful. They were successful in using that. And they called me in one day and said, you know, we've been watching your work and so forth, and Jacques Cousteau had the Calypso on the East Coast, and he'd go all through the Caribbean and so forth. And he said he wants to put a vessel on the West Coast, and we would be most interested if you would, you know, consent to be perhaps the head diver, the research diver. Well, I went through the roof. I thought that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Well, I got all excited, and I told my wife about it, and she said, oh boy, money's going to be rolling in. We'll get a better house and better car and stuff. Well, that lasted for a while until some of the dives I was making got rather dangerous, and I had a few close calls. I wasn't in any trouble, but everybody thought I was. I came up with no air from 250 feet. Which is no big thing. If you're a diver, you understand that you're just exhaling air all the way up. And I was only down there for a few minutes, so I didn't have to hang off, which they call decompressing. And so there was no danger. I got up and I said, no, what? And they thought, oh, you know, everybody was panicking, mostly my wife. She said, no. She said, you got to get into something else. Well, I was always discovering and inventing little things around the house that would run on practically nothing, on 2 and 3 milliamps and small battery powered and stuff. And she put a newspaper over my cornflakes one day and said, here's a job right here 2 blocks away was a research lab called Advanced Kinetics. And they said, and she said, they're looking for a lab tech. Go in and see if you can get a job. You'll be right close to home. You'll be home every night and everything. And I said, well, I'm not qualified. I don't have any credentials or anything. She said, well, you know natural law, and you know how simple everything you look at, you can see the simplicity. So go in and tell them what you do, like Big Mouth saying, well, I can make it simple for you. So I went in, and it was noontime, and nobody was there. And I walked down the hall, and the director's name was Dr. Weinhardt. He's a physicist, a German physicist. And he saw me walking, and he said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm just looking for a job. And he said, well, you have to come back. They were all at lunch. And I said, okay. And I thought, well, I'll get out of here. And he said, wait a minute, come in. Well, what do you do and stuff? And I told him, well, I got out of the service and I'm a diver. He said, well, what are you doing here? And I said, well, because this is a research and development lab, and I'm in the research and development in my own, hi, baby, in my own life, and I thought maybe he'd be interested, or some crazy thing I told him. And he said, well, like what? And I said, well, and I explained a few natural laws that are simplistic in nature. And he picked up on it, and he said, oh, yeah, oh okay. And this was before quantum became popular, you know, and I was talking about things equated to quantum mechanics and how things operated. One and one can make 3 instead of 2, et cetera, et cetera. And so and I said, well, and my favorite thing since birth has been magnetism. He said, magnetism? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I just had an engineer quit and on an experiment, and you're hired, go to work, and we'll fill out the applications later. So I said, well, what? He says, well, they'll show you. Go back there and get set up with a shop foreman and so forth. And I just had to fire an electron through a magnetic field from point A to point B without deflection, without it going to the positive or the negative side. And they had a big oscilloscope and a big Polaroid camera, all fancy, thousands of dollars worth of equipment, so that I could record every shot. And all I did all day long was fire these little electrons. That was my job. Huh? And take pictures of it. And I said, this is kind of nutty.
Kind of like a video game.
Yeah, yeah. I said, God, you know, and they said, no, keep going. You keep increasing the Gauss, the energy. Just keep forcing that little electron. You'll get one. And I said, well, no, you're going contrary to the laws of nature. You know, nature doesn't work that way. You've got to go with nature if you want to get somewhere. So I didn't say anything. I said, oh, I can do this. And I decided to go home and make a replica of what I was doing. And then I looked over on the next bench, and they were working on levitation. And they had these steel, just these steel coils, and they took steel balls and levitated them for 4 or 5 minutes, and they'd burn the coils out because the resistance, and got so hot they'd burn the coils out. And they'd go check another one out. And I found out they were $400 a copy, and this was in the 50s. And I said, man, these experiments are getting expensive. And mine was totaling out like $2,000 a day for what I was doing with the high speed and all this stuff that I was doing. I said, they're spending a lot of money here, and they're not getting anywhere. And I said, I'm going to exercise what I feel is the right way to do things, and simplistic way of doing things, and maybe I'll get a big raise. So I went home, I tore apart a television set and got the cathode ray out and got it set up, and magnets, and I got it all ready to go. And the only difference was I knew that in nature, if you come full circle like a vortex, if you spiral, if you pulse a signal instead of forcing, you give nature a chance to breathe, you know, instead of yeah. So I did, and the first shot went through, the second, the third 30th shot went through, and I said, perfect, it's that simple. So I took pictures of it and wrote it all up. And I was really feeling cocky then, and I said, well, I'll go on that levitation thing. I got an idea. And at that time, I'd been studying the Tibetan modes of levitation, where they raise giant blocks up the sides of cliff. I said, well, that's sound waves. Oh, yeah, it's acoustical. Yeah, I can do that. So I took a 15-inch woofer speaker and put it on the living room floor, and hooked up a little audio amplifier that I'd bought for 20 or 25 bucks at a garage sale. And I played with the frequencies, the vibrations, till I reached the right frequency to levitate a ping pong ball right in the center. Simple, man, there's nothing to it. There's levitation right there. No sound, no nothing. I mean, I was up about 28,000, hertz or something like that. And there was no sound, and I said, well, there it is. And so I wrote that one up and took pictures of it, and I thought I was going to get a gigantic raise and maybe a promotion or whatever. And I went into the director's office, and I said, I got something to show you. I got to show you this. And he said, what? And I said, well, I think we've done it. I've got the electron through the field, and we can levitate things with sound waves and not burn up these $400 coils. So I showed him what I'd done and everything, and he looked at it and he said, "Well, wow, man, I never thought you'd get that far with this." He says, "We don't go there." And I said, well, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well," he says, "this is a government-funded research and development laboratory, and we're paid to look for answers, not find them." And that blew my world apart. It honest to God, it blew. I felt like, what am I doing here? I mean, this is what I came to do, is this kind of stuff. And he's telling me, no, you can't do that. So I was, I was absolutely devastated. I didn't know what to do. He told me, go back to work. We'll increase your salary. Don't say anything to the engineers. Don't talk to anybody. And I'm going to run this through the shredder. And that's the end of it. So I went back to work and lasted about another week because I was thinking if I went home without a paycheck, my wife was going to get upset. And I had no idea what I was going to do. And I could have gotten back into diving, but I had already quit the U.S. Divers, so I would have had to go in on my own and stuff. Well, I was talking to some friends of mine, and this one guy said, I, I was sounding like a kook because I was telling what I was doing, and he says, well, you know, there's some other people like you that have done the same things, and they'd like, you know, come over to one of the meetings. I said, okay. So I went over to, the name of the group was the Understanding Group. It's created by a guy by the name of Daniel Fry, an old timer in the New Age stuff, or the old UFO stuff and investigative stuff. And so I went over there and I told him, I said, man, all I want to do is see floating homes and floating cities and floating countries. There's no reason why we can't do this. You know, we've even got the technology right now. All we have to do is fine tune it and bring it into sync, and we can do it. And the resistance I keep running into are people. They said, you can't, you won't, you. So they said, well, there's a guy out in Oklahoma City that's been doing this, trying to do the same thing, and his name is Otis Carr, and he wants to build spaceships. And I said, well, that's a natural, that's it. That's what I want to do. So they were giving him a lot of trouble and everything, so they said, well, we're going to bring him out here. So they brought him and his entourage out to Costa Mesa, and they said, look at,
Yeah,
oh my
that's
God, that's cool.
I've never seen anything like that.
That's really cool.
sorry.
No,
Yeah.
She's making sure that it's okay before.
Is that it?
Yeah, because she's a wild one. She wanted to make sure it tasted all right before she
She's
put her
not
face
that
on it.
wild because she loves to be pet. Usually wild
That-
cats.
She's picking up the water.
Yeah.
That's
that's neat.
There's a bee floating by you.
Oh, that's okay.
When I said that.
So anyway,
car.
they invited Carr out because he's getting a lot of trouble. They wanted to shut him down. They said, "You're not going to build spaceships. There's no such thing." And he had gone to the patent office already with his patent for levitation. He says, "I want levitating discs, and I want a patent on this." And they said, "Well, you're using magnetic resonance. You're using sympathetic vibrations. You're using terms that are not allowed in your patent." And levitation does not agree with the present laws of physics. And they cited the second law of thermodynamics, that you can't get more out of something than you put into it. And Carr said, well, we do that every day. If you look around you, we're getting more out of something than we put into it every day. And they didn't want to hear it. They said, pull the levitation device out and we'll give you a patent on an amusement device, and you can put it in a park and let kids ride on it or something. So it kind of really upset Carr, but he said, okay, I'll pull it out, and he did, and he got a patent on an amusement device. But he said, I'm going to write a book called Dimensions of Mystery. I brought you a copy of it on a disc. And he said, when people raise their consciousness high enough, they'll be able to see in these prose and poems and things about hummingbirds and rocks and trees how important it is to deal with the laws of nature. And when they understand that, they'll be able to, the levitation will be known to everyone, and they won't be able to stop it ever again. So I thought that was pretty cool. Well, anyway, they brought Carr out. I got acquainted with him. It was like I was a multidimensional being with a multidimensional being. We just, there was nothing that we couldn't see or do. It was just really, really beautiful experience. And he told me about Tesla. He lived and worked with Tesla for about 3 years. And he said that remember, there's only the one. Don't think of anything but the one. Always the one. Everything is simple. Everything is true. Everything is known in the oneness. And when you need to explain this, you can explain it to people as frames of reference. That everything is true in frames of reference. Because life is perception from the inside out, not the other way around, not outside in. And so that everything that happens is true to those that experience it. If they image it, it is true. It's all automatically true. So anyway, he said, don't get discouraged. We're going to, you and I, and he had about 8 or 10 people with him. We're going to build a spaceship. So they found a laboratory in Apple Valley, Hesperia, and we went down there. And hi, baby, hi. We went down and proceeded to build spaceships. And we had some prototypes going that were just really coming along nicely. And we felt we were having problems wondering how we were ever going to introduce these to people. Sure, maybe a few people or a few hundred, or maybe even a few thousand, but unless you hit the multitudes, they're going to fall back into apathy. So I remember an experiment where we had a 3-foot craft on the workbench, and Carr was always explaining that the brain equates to a computer. All its job is to operate the vessel that our spirit lives in, or our energy, or chi, or soul, or whatever. And that the brain has an optimum capacity, and all it does is take care of the body. It makes sure all the organs are functioning, and all your breathing, and your food intake, your metabolism. Beyond that, it's not interested. It doesn't want to hear about spaceships. It doesn't want to hear about frogs in the wilderness, or it's not interested. So you're wasting your time if you think the brain is going to get you anywhere. You've got to put the brain to sleep when you focus on what we're going to do. And we're going to build spaceships that are multidimensional. In order to build multidimensional ships, you must become multidimensional yourself. So I said, wow, that's cool. I love it. And he said, we're going to have this experiment with this 3-foot craft. And they started vibrating it the same, almost acoustically, but it wasn't acoustically because it was an aluminum craft, T6 aluminum, a good grade aluminum. And they just started vibrating at different frequencies. And I was touching the craft on the top, and it was solid. And I said, ooh, wow, this is neat, because I could feel the vibrations going through the crystalline structure of the aluminum. And then pretty soon, it started being like Jello. My fingers started going inside. And I said, no, my brain wanted to say, this is impossible, forget it, get out of here. But something told me, oh, this is simple, this is neat. And I think it was my earlier association with natural law and living in the woods for so long that I said, oh, this is perfectly neat, this is natural. So I kept going until I put my whole hand inside this shell of this craft, back and forth. I said, oh, this is neat. And I could feel my brain wanting to tell me I was an idiot, that there's no such thing, you can't do this, this is not possible. And Carr's over there laughing at me. He was just having a fit. And so after the experiment, he explained to me, he says, oh no, it's perfectly natural. You're not who you think you are. You're an energy field. You're a source. You're a magnetic field. And when you reach a resonant frequency, oh my gosh. I'll just shut it off for now. If I can get to it.
That's a calm one.
That's probably Bruce. I'll call him later. Just, could you turn it off? So, I'm sorry. So, he explained that because of his explanation of life as perception from the inside out, and he talked about the eyes. Well, actually, I got that from Carr, and then I picked up on it myself. And I found out that the eyes are like like a like a camera. They're opening and closing at 24.5 frames per second. And so we're perceiving a world, a dimension, an illusion, if you will, of 24.5 frames per second. But when you can raise or lower your vibratory rate, the outside world will change with you. And you become a creator of your own reality. You become synergized with, the outside becomes in harmony with the inside, and you change things before you get there. And this is where Marsha and I have been having a lot of fun with magic, real magic. It's so beautiful, so simple, and joy all the time. But he said, you put your hand in there because I had already told you, let your brain, just ignore your brain and listen to your intuition, to your heart, because that is the reality. The reality is that you're energy, and that's energy. And when you synergize with energy, you can change it. You can change your molecular structure. You can be in harmony, in harmonics with energy. And I said, oh yeah, that's simple. I got it. He says, well, we're going to take a model to. We've invited a representative from General Motors to come out and talk to us because we've got the prototypes and we're ready to go into production. And we want General Motors to manufacture these and take the wheel, which is ruining the earth, tearing up all the landscape and the beautiful gardens and everything. And then you're putting cement and asphalt down, and we want to take the wheel from a vertical position and turn it horizontally. And we can do this with magnetics. And we're going to talk to General Motors about it. So they sent a rep out, and we met him in Riverside, California. And he said, well, what do you got there? And we levitated a small disc on his desk. And he had his engineers and his physicists there, and they were checking us for wires. They thought we were magicians, you know. They thought, well, it's some kind of remote or something. And this was really before the days of remote became popular. But they checked us out, and the consensus after about a half an hour or more with these guys looking at it, there's something here we don't understand, but it's working. And but we can't accept this or allow this because it's defying our known physics. We can't do this way. And Carr said, well, we would like you to be our manufacturer and build these things. And the guy really blew his fuses because he said, no, you're going to put all our people out of work. You know, we've got thousands of people working for us, and they have to they have to punch a time clock and get a paycheck and go home and feed their families every day. And you're going to bring this in and operate on an energy you take out of the air for free and forever. You don't ever have to replace it or replenish it. He says, you can't do this. So Carr said, well, you don't quite understand. By taking and giving people the opportunity to be free of toil, to be free of servitude, you will have magnificent beings coming to light. Their energy fields will transmit into enormous beings that can create things you've never even imagined. And we would be back into a barter system of unparalleled, because we would be interchanging our talents with one another. And you would have no need for servitude. We would all live in harmony. And this guy he didn't want to hear this at all. And so he says, Mr. Carr, I'm going to ask you to leave right now, and I don't want you to go any further with this, and I'll tell you one thing: if you put them up, we'll shoot them down. That's the word he said to us. So Carr said, okay, I thank you very much, and we left. And Carr, when we got back to the lab, Carr said, okay, we're on countdown now, because the word's going to get out. They're going to find us. They're going to shut us down. And we know that's coming. So we had one fully operational craft and two in almost operational, 45 foot in diameter, big craft. And he said, we're going to take the 45 footer and run a test. We already know it works. We're going to run a test, and then we're going to get it ready. And we're not sure, we have to wait for guidance, but we may fly it over LA with bells and whistles and say, look, people, this is real, or whatever we had to do to wake people up.
What year was that?
It was 1959, just 1960. So he said, whatever we have to do, we'll do it. Because the time's running out, they don't want this, and they're going to shut us down. So I was just a lab tech with Carr. We had engineers, brilliant engineers that designed and did the work on the craft. But I was kind of a gopher, and I was Carr's best friend, because we could get into multidimensional conceptual thinking and stay up for days without even getting any sleep. It wasn't necessary, because the energy kept replenishing itself. So he said, no, you're going on the craft. And I just, man, that was the answer to my dream, to get to do something like that. So myself and two engineers got on board this craft. And there's one disc in there from the Discovery Channel. You'll see a replica of the crystal that we had in the center of the craft. And we had a laser coming up from the bottom of the crystal. It was a quartz crystal, by the way. And when they turned the laser on, the crystal illuminated in all the light of the color spectrum, from infrared to ultraviolet. And you could see red, red, red. If I stayed there for 10 years, I could still see red. But it would go from red to orange to yellow and follow itself around. It was beautiful. And he said, well, now here's the deal, boys. We're going downrange to an area about approximately 10 miles. We've measured that field electronically, and the energy field in that space equates to the light spectrum and the color of aquamarine. So all I want you to do is put your brain to sleep. Don't get excited, don't panic, don't do anything, just be calm and focus. And when this starts turning into aquamarine, you'll see what, you just rest. And that's what we did. It turned the entire globe into aquamarine, and then lit up the entire insides of the ship. It was just beautiful. It was like being underwater. It was just really a brilliant color. And then I thought, well, okay, I guess we're getting ready to go. And then I heard Carr say, and we must have had walkie-talkie, because I don't remember, we didn't have cell phones. But he said, okay, that's it, come on down. That's the end of the experiment. Come on down for debriefing. And I said, well, we didn't go anywhere. And I talked to the other engineers. No, we didn't work. So we went down, and Carr called us in. had kind of a smirk on his face. It reminded me of the Chesacat, big grin. And he was just smiling. And he said, well, tell me about your experience. And we said, well, we didn't go anywhere. I know I didn't. I know I sat in this chair, and I know I was hanging. We didn't go anywhere. He says, so that's what you think? Yeah, that's what I know. And he said, no, it's not what you know. What you know is in the mind. What you think is in the brain. He says, empty your pockets. So we emptied our pockets with sticks and stones and grass and everything that we put in. We had these little jumpsuits on. And he said, well, where did all that come from? And we were sealed inside the craft, and I know when no one got in, we were consciously aware of what was going on. And at that point, we had absolutely, totally no idea where this came from. And he said, well, I told you that that this is a state of mind, and where you went was in and out of time. Time being only a measurement that man's created. Time and space are really one. And the distance between one occurrence and the other is called space. And your energy field's already everywhere. You are already everywhere there is. So when you energize to aquamarine, this went into a resonant frequency of this thing downrange of 10 mile, and you just became into that dimension. And you did what you were supposed to do, and you came back. And here at ground zero, the ship levitated and then disappeared for about 5 seconds, and then reappeared. And your time was about 10 or 15 minutes downrange while you were doing all this work. And he said, no, we don't. He says, your brain won't accept this for maybe weeks, months, or maybe years, or maybe you'll never accept it. But it's the truth. And until you find that it is the truth, you're always going to be haunted with it, because you went into who and what you really are. You're just an energy field. You're a conception of energy. You're part of a hologram. And then I remember the Beatles, you are Magical Mystery Tour. I am you and you are me. And yeah, I get it. So anyway, it took me months before I started remembering, oh God, I remember now. And then actually it wasn't until just a couple of years ago that I almost got total recovery of I can remember what had happened. And I remember getting out of the ship. And we got an email about, I guess they saw one of my videos, and we got an email from police officers in Apple Valley, and they were on patrol, and they said, wait a minute, did you guys land at this certain area, and did you have jumpsuits on, and there was 3 of you, and you got out, and you just took a couple of minutes, and you got back in and disappeared? And I said, well, yeah, maybe that was us. We had jumpsuits on and everything. So we got a confirmation from the Apple Valley Police Department. They saw something unusual, and it equated to what we were doing. And then we had other confirmations at the Salt Lake Tesla conference when I was up there to speak. Just last year. Could you? Okay. Sorry. A lady came up to me and said, you know, I'd really like to talk to you. When I was six years old, we lived in Victorville, California, which isn't far from Apple Valley. And my dad got acquainted with Mr. Carr and his entourage, and they became friends enough to invite us over to the facility, to the lab, to show us the shops and the machine shops and everything. But the thing I remember most is going into that craft that you on your disc had mentioned. I went in there and I saw everything, the crystal and the double tetrahedron, which was called the Utron. And she says, I remember all that. And then she left that day. This is in July of last year.
Yes.
July. Well, she came back the next day with an article in the paper with her dad with her, and it had said that they'd gone to the facility and, you know, seen it. So little confirmations that, oh yeah, and now I'm absolutely, you know, my brain accepts everything because I tell it to now. It doesn't tell me anymore. So
So it's the brain that shut off the memory initially. It just wouldn't allow you access to it. Didn't have a construct to handle it. So
yeah, the brain doesn't want to believe in anything outside of itself. It just doesn't. It lives in a world of duality, you know, right, wrong, left, right, up, down, and we now, Marsha and I, have been friends forever. I mean, many lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes. She's my buddy, like you two guys. I can see it in you two guys. And she and I, we play with this magic now and have wonderful, joyous times with it. And everywhere we go, we are just fascinated by the things that we are perceiving now that we used to doubt, that we used to fear with it, we used to not understand. Now we fully accept everything and just, like you were saying earlier, just live it, just be it, you know.
How's that work?
And, well, uh, let's see, what's a good thing to mention? What, the lychee, maybe? Well, there's many things. Of course, finding parking spaces is old hat. That's
yeah.
There's nothing to that. But we like lychee. It's an Oriental fruit, and we really enjoy it. And we were running low on our lychee, and I remembered that I had got some at the 99-cent store. And so we were in our travels. We saw a 99-cent store, and I said, "Well, we got to get some lychee, and we're running low." So we went in. We went to the fruit section, the canned fruit, and nothing at all. They just went up and down and looked at all the cans. And there was a clerk stocking the shelves, and we said, "We're looking for the lychee." So we don't handle that anymore. We haven't handled that for quite a while. We don't have it here. And we turned on this power. It's just a knowing, and you don't accept doubt. You just know, and that turns this magic on. And so I said, "No, Marsha, I know it's here.
Very firm.
yeah.
It's beyond belief. It's beyond doubt. I know it's here." And I reached in behind the cans. Here are these peaches and pears, and I started pulling out cans of lychee. And I handed her about 3 or 4 cans of lychee, and she knows, she's familiar with the magic because we've been using it for quite a while. But she said, "No, wait, it's my turn." So Marsha went over, and I thought I'd got them all because I couldn't see anything more. And she reached in behind and pulled lychee out. And oh my gosh. So, and we felt, this is that feeling of joy that you're one with the universe. You're one with your essence and everything. And then we went around the corner, and I said, "Well, we've only had 4 cans, and I really wanted to get some more." And curiously, there was another fruit section that just kind of appeared. Two fruit sections in the same store. I didn't get it. Just as I was saying, we really need more, and I looked over and there's another fruit section. So Marsha and I both said, "Okay, let's scrutinize this," and we looked, no lychee, nothing. They're up, down, behind, and everything. And I said, "No, we really need 4 more, Marsha." And I reached over, like, to pick up I don't even know what I was doing, but yet I do. And I started pulling out lychee again. I pulled 4 more cans out of nowhere. And we loaded it up in the cart. It was cool. I mean, it's so simple.
It was just crazy. We were laughing.
Oh, we were giggling and cracking up. It was fun, you know. So ever since the experiences with the car, I've been trying to get the spaceships back, you know, to be recognized by people. And I'd gone into retirement because I felt I spent 35 years as a locksmith supporting my hobby, which is building spaceships. And I'd gone into retirement, and I said, well, they're not interested. They're not going to ever buy this. They say I'm a kook. They say there's no such thing. And even though I know, because I've been there and done that it's possible, I'll just have to go into a holding pattern until my 15 minutes or whatever comes up. So I waited. Project Camelot came along and said, we want to interview you. And I said, oh, what about? And they said, well, it's ready. The time's changing now. And what you guys are doing, people like myself, is very much, this is what needs to be brought to the consciousness of people. And we'd like to interview you. And I said, oh man, I don't really want, didn't really want to be interviewed, because I felt I'd be run the gamut of ridicule and blah, blah, blah again. He said, no, it won't be that way again, because people are changing. So I says, okay. So they came, I lived in Las Vegas, and they came to my residence, and they filmed and filmed me. And they went back to Hollywood. They're from Hollywood. They were at that time. And all of a sudden, I was getting a knee replacement. I had a knee replacement on one knee, and then I wanted to get the other knee done. The first one went fine, no problems. The second knee went fine, no problems, up till the last minute when I was supposed to go home. I was in physical therapy. And they said, you can go home tomorrow, you're okay. That's all we can do for you. Just keep working your knee and so forth. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and they were giving me a blood transfusion. And all these people were around me, and they were holding me down and giving me this blood. And I said, wait a minute, this is against my will or my consent here. Well, I want to talk to a doctor. And they just pushed me down, and they hauled in a gurney and put me on a gurney and strapped me down, ran me out to an ambulance, and I was right next to a hospital. But they ran me to a hospital 25 miles away and put me in the emergency. And I got in there, and they examined me, and they said, you're a dead man, man. All your white cells are gone. I mean, they're just, and it started to affect all your organs, and everything is in you is starting to go. They said, we'll do everything we can to save you, but you're just, man, I don't know. And I had everything under the book. I had colitis, I had double pneumonia, I had 17 different things going on with me at the same time. They put me in intensive care, and they kept trying everything, but nothing was working. They couldn't get my white cells functioning again and so forth. Well, this is when Marsha, my best friend, came to my rescue. She heard about what was going on, and she knew that I was trying to get the information out again, and she felt that somehow I was being curtailed. I was being stopped again. And she's a corporate executive. She worked for Bendix and General Electric and everything, big corporate jobs. But she said, forget it. And she flew up. She just she didn't quit, but she left her job and came up to the hospital where I was at and said, Ralph, you've got this mission. You've got to build these spaceships. You can't go now. And I was all swollen up. I was like an elephant. I was all gray. And remember?
Oh yeah, I do totally remember. I thought he was too far gone, that probably he couldn't stay, but
You still, still gave the info.
And every part of my body.
He just said, no, I don't even care if I live. He was in Las Vegas, and he'd gone into retirement, and he basically gave up on the mission. And I said, you had this mission, and I wasn't really sure if he was too far gone, or if he could change his mind, but I said, you can. You can do the mission, and you know.
And you will. You told me you will do it. She's my other half. Well, I'm the one and she's the other, or I'm the other and she's the one. It doesn't matter. We're one. And we've always known this. So anyway, I experienced the metamorphosis of death. I know what death is. It's in a blink of an eye, there's nothing to it. It lasted a matter of milliseconds. I saw, oh, this is cool, man. And I saw my old self, image of the old illusion of me, with the doctors pulling the sheet and calling the coroner and just, he's gone. That's it. Get him out of here. We got to rent the room. But the new me was, oh man, I'm ready to go here. All my energy's coming back, and I'm just, and when I woke up in that room, which was just illusions apart,
Right.
here's Marsha saying, "Oh, you're back. It's about time." And my color was coming back, and the swelling just went down like nothing. And the doctors came in and said, "Well, there's nothing more wrong with you. You can go home." You know, so I did, and I went home, and then Project Camelot called and said, "The first film, we had it in a can and everything, but the sound didn't come out, and it was contaminated. We don't know what happened. Can we come back and film you again?" I said, "Sure." So they came back to Vegas and got the film that they did.
And
But-
on that first interview, you can see how gray he looked. He
Oh yeah,
just
I was a dead man walking when I first got interviewed by them. I was just recovering. But
and completely with a different attitude, like nobody can stop me. I've already experienced death,
Yeah.
so I can go for
Yeah,
anything
right.
now.
they can do what they want with this thing called the body, which is an illusion, but they'll never kill my spirit, which I can keep going forever. So I tell them to take your best shot, you know, just that you're not going to stop spaceships. And so from that point on, things have progressively moved on. I got invited to Hawaii with a group called the Residents. I should have brought one of Nissan of the Residents, but I'll get it to them later. The Residents project, they were involved in very high level experiments with alternative energies and so forth. And after they invited me over there, and I told them about ether technology and esoteric understandings that would blend in with the laws of nature and make things work simply, they said, "Well, we want you on our staff." And they created what is called the Elders of the Round Table. And I happen to be the eldest. But the one under me is Elizabeth Rauscher, who is a Nobel, she's nominated 3 times for the Nobel Prize.
Wow.
She's been at MIT, she's been at Lawrence Livermore, she's been everywhere. And she had gone as far as she could in science and found that they were chasing their tail. They were not going to go anywhere anymore until they got into spirit, into the spirit of man and who and what we really are. That's the only thing that's going to be able to change. So she joined us. And then we have a gold medalist. His name is Oliver Keane, I think is his last name. He won the gold medal. Hi, baby. He won the gold medal for kayaking in 2003 or something. And he helps coordinate and keep us on balance. If you know, keep all the ducks in a row. When we're in conference and everything, if somebody gets off on a tangent, he'll just look at them, and we'll go right back to where we're supposed to be. He's very, very good at what he does. So, and then we got Bob Blood. He's an engineer, and he's working on magnetic motors, and he's got his whole laboratory set up. He's showed us these motors. He just touches them, and they start. And he's got light bulbs setting on them. And he touches them and gets them started magnetically. And he says, well, you know, a regular motor, you know, it always heats up. You've got resistance. And as this thing got faster and faster, he says, touch it. It was ice cold, no resistance. It was lighting up all these huge light bulbs everywhere. And he says, it'll go on. I have to shut it off. I have to stop it, because it'll go on all night and drive me crazy. So. And he's had other magnetic motors doing the same thing. So he's on our staff. And then we've got another guy named Lazar, and he's an engineer, and he works with Bob on designing the stuff that he's working on. So we formed this thing in Hawaii, and for a while I was commuting back and forth to Hawaii. And we found some land, and we got the facilities ready, and then we needed some backers. and the backers came in like flies for a while, but they had contingencies. They wanted too much control, and we said, no, this is for the people. It's not for private enterprise. It's
They want
for,
return on investment.
Yes.
yeah, they wanted a return. And time after time, we had to turn them down. Said, God, we'd love to, but we can't do this. This
They're
is
doing
not
it for money instead of for
Right.
humanity.
right.
Yes.
So we're still in progress on Hawaii, and we just got a call not too long ago, a week or so, from Andre. We're still progressing, but we're waiting for the energy fields to change or the vacuum to be created large enough so that we can complete what we're doing over there, which is a large facility. We'll be building craft over there. This is on the Big Island. And then just recently, we've got another, we call them pods, different places where people like me are working on spaceships. And we have another one on the border of Canada and Idaho. His name is Dr. George Freebot. And he's brilliantly known throughout the world for his oxygen therapy. He's healing cancer with oxygen and so forth. He's very well known. And but his pet interest, because he worked with Tesla technology, and he still had some parts, and I've still had some parts left from the old ships that we worked on. So he's got 80 acres up there, and he's devoted part of it to building the spaceships, and the rest to fund everything was his medical thing. So he just called the other night, a couple of nights ago, and said the doctors, these group of doctors have come together, and they're sick and tired of not helping people. They're not living up to the Hippocratic Oath. They're sick and tired of this, and they want it stopped. And we want to fund you with your oxygen therapy. And Dr. Freebot said, well, okay. And he said, no, we really want to do this, because he's heard offers before and everything. No strings. We know what you need. We know what you want. And we've already bought the land. We've already bought the facilities, big conference halls and everything for you. So you can go ahead with what you're doing. So George called us and said that now we'll be able to build the spaceships, because that'll be a spin.
So what I really, really want to know is, from your experience, how we can keep our frequency, our own health, our own optimism, our own mind or brain turned off and our hearts wide open, to change our frequencies of love. How do we do that? What do we do? What did you do to save your own life? How do we do it?
Well, it really equates to, and it's going to sound overly simplistic, but it equates to one frame of reference called love, and and all the ramifications of what love represents and what love means. When you start dissecting what love is, you find there's no beginning and no end to it. It's endless. It's a bottomless pit. And when you go into a state of love, or a state of being, if you will, in the now, in the moment. See, Marsha and I should have told you about the Hawaiian thing along with the Lechi. I was commuting back and forth to Hawaii, and I would have to pack my suitcase. I'd have to get on the internet to get my ticket. And is the plane's going to be grounded? Are they going to show up on time? And I got a 7-hour flight. Oh my God. And I got tired of it after a while. And I said, unacceptable for me in my dimension, in my perception of life. It's no longer perceptible to take all this unnecessary things. So I went into this area of being now, no past, no future, just being in the now, if you will. And I had just got done talking to Marsha on the phone. We used to communicate for hours, day and night, on concepts, far out concepts. And I told Marsha, at least I believe I told you, that I had to go back to Hawaii, but I wasn't going to go through that hassle anymore. So I was just sitting at my computer and just spacing out, if you will. And then all of a sudden, just in a blink of an eye, I looked around and I was at the conference table in Hawaii. and the guys we were all discussing things, and I was right in rhythm with them, perfect harmony, like I'd been there for, quite a while. We were discussing things, and everything was cool and fine, and I didn't even think of anything until one of the guys said, well, how was your flight? And that got me. That made me aware, oh my God, I didn't have a flight this time. I'm here. But then I created, something in me created a past. Like I could remember, oh yeah, it must have been this and that and the other. And I built in, I created a past. Yeah, well, the same old flight, same old stuff. I just lightly went through it so that, and then, but I kind of looked into the eyes of the person that was asking me the question to tell them there's something more to this. And what I'm trying to say is beyond words to you. I don't know how to say it, but I was there and I'm here. And I was hoping he was picking up on a sub-level of what I was trying to do. But so then I realized by staying in the now, by being who and what you are, which we are eternal energy beings that have always been, we always will be, we're already everywhere at the same time, start living it, start using the magic to progressively move in different dimensions. And that then equates to time, that there is really no time. It's like Marsha and I have been moving progressively through dimensional changes quite rapidly lately because we've changed our perception. And as we change our perception, the people, places, and things around us subtly, even though they seem the same, they're different. They're on a different level. They're of a different character, a different caliber, a different energy field. And this is blowing us away because we're meeting with you guys, man. It's just, we're up.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Very.
And it's to be aware. To be aware that the dimension is different when you're right in it. Ralph and I are now using our office space together. He has his computer and I have my computer. And so the other day we were talking and I said, do you see things differently? And he said, yes, I do. It's like the color in the room. We're in the same room. The color in the room, the vibration in the room is actually different. Mm-hmm. And you're aware of it as it's happening. And it lasted for not just a split second, for quite a period of time. And it's very exciting because we've always heard we're one and we're in the multiverse. I mean, not just the universe, not in just the space, but in the oneness, and that we're traveling all of these different dimensions. But to be consciously aware of changing a dimension is very exciting, and yet it just seems like it's a natural, normal thing also.
That's the way life is supposed to be. And we found that letting go of old ideas, which is the hardest thing to do, because we're shifting paradigms, obviously, from the old ideas of you can't, you won't, you don't, to yes, I can, I will, and I'm doing it. Just accepting. And then we change these little 24.5 cycles per second to infinity. We can start seeing with our real eyes, which is the pituitary gland is attached to the heart and the intuition. And once you start vibrating the frontal lobes and the inner pituitary or the pineal gland, then the real eyes opens and you see things beyond infinity. You see beauty that's unparalleled. That it's just so. And then we realize that if we get into a situation, a challenge, because we're constantly challenged, and that's strengthening us. We welcome challenge. Like, give me another one. Give me another one. They're hard because it deals with with hang-ups that happened when I was a kid. Against my dad and I were rivals. He was, I didn't want anything to do with him. I wanted to. He wanted me to go to West Point, and I wanted to go learn on about nature and becoming a forest ranger, and stuff. So we didn't get along. Well, you bury those things down deep, and you think, oh no, everything's fine, but somehow the magic doesn't always work. Like, okay, well, not the parking places, that's old hat, but let's create something over here, and it doesn't seem to work. Well, then we get quiet, we get still, and realize we haven't released something that's holding us up. It's our thought, and we call them shadows. And so we bring both of us communicating, all right, what's the deal between you and your dad? Well, da 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 da. And then she says, well, let it go. It's nothing. Forgive him, forgive you, and let it go. And you'll go up. You'll get, oh yeah, I forgot. So now we're both letting go of all these hang-ups. And the more we do, the more magic that we're able to use on doing things, So staying in the now and love, the love energy, just loving, like everything, the rocks, like you mentioned, the trees, just every moment. When we wake up in the morning, we have a conference for about a half an hour before we even get out of bed. And in the evening, just before we go to sleep. And we clear the day. And if there's any hang-ups, if there's anything we don't understand, we clear it before we go to sleep. And then when we wake up, I love birds, and so does Marsha. We both love birds. So we've got bird feeders outside our window, and we wake up and say, oh man, another beautiful day. This is going to be wow. And then we get in the shower and sing zippity-doo-dah, zippity, and we go crazy with these things. And all of a sudden, the day just starts cooking. And just before us, things will happen. There'll be a detour in a sign. There'll be a 2-hour wait. But by the time we get there, they let our car go through and they held all the rest. Like, what? Things like that happening. So we know that these are signs that we're in tune with ourselves and the nature around us. And we found a program that we very much honor and respect on the internet. It's called Conclave 2005. You go into that, and then you go down to what's called the reconnections. And these are beings anonymously getting information from the ethers, from themselves, from the collective consciousness, and pouring it into this website. And we call them the recons. It's just phenomenal what we've been able. We've stepped up our progression 100% by just working with these techniques. And they'll take words like dis-ease, and they'll take words like that we used to think was a negative word, like depression, like depressed. Oh, depressed. We're supposed to feel sad that somebody's depressed. And they take the word deep rest. That's a perfect place for that person. They go into a deep rest to sort out who and what they are and why and so forth. So that becomes a positive. It's no longer a negative, like, oh, he's depressed. Oh, great, man. He'll get it then. It changes the whole perception.
Because the crisis is the opportunity to change.
Yes. Yeah.
People don't change until they're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
There you go. There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you were right there at the end. And that was the beginning. To make an end is to make a beginning. Your choice was I got things to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
now
she
they're
showed
happening.
She showed up to help you, remind you.
And I could not do it alone. I can't do. I try. We get kind of ticked at one another once in a while, and I'll say, oh well, I'll just do it myself, and I cannot do anything without the other half of me, which is the other energy field that's necessary from her.
Is it a mirror? A
Yeah.
mirror?
Yeah.
So she reflects back
Yeah.
to you what you're not saying. Is that part of it?
Yes. I'll say something to her, and I'll say, well, da da da, and she'll go like this, like it's a mirror, and say,
And he does that to me too. It's like you put you know, I'll say something to him, and he'll say, "Here's
here's the mirror.
And it is so phenomenal and so helpful.
And we have to
To
crack
have
up.
this.
We have to laugh and say, "Oh yeah, that's right. It's me. It's me again. It's my problem or my
Perception.
misunderstanding." Huh?
Perception. It's all
Perception. Yeah.
It's all, yeah.
So staying in the now is becoming easier and easier every day, and we don't accept, and like being on time. You know, people say, "Oh, I'm going to be late." It's like the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. I'm late. I'm late. And we tell people, and I tell on my talks, no, forget it. You're never late. You are never, never late. Believe that, and then go beyond belief to know that, and you'll see that you will never, never, ever be late again. And they'll say, wait a minute, I've got a doctor's appointment at 1 o'clock. It's 10 minutes after 1, and he's 5 miles away. I'm already late. Get in your car and go to your appointment. When you get there, the doctor will be late. And without fail, if you know that, if you know you're on your time, then you've changed your perception right in before you. It works
I
every
believe
time.
the Native Americans do have that concept. I've been very active with them also, and they're amazing on their timing, and they're not thinking of timing, but they're bringing things together, and it's like an innate knowing that there is no real time. The other thing that I was so surprised in spending time on the reservation, when they would decide they would have their ceremonies, people would come out of everywhere on the reservation without phones, without cell phones, with no house phones. They're not sending smoke signals any longer like we've always thought. They are telepathically communicating with each other, and it's so beautiful. These things they're things that we all can do, and we have pulled that veil of forgetfulness down over. We've been programmed for eons and eons, and it's now time to go back into the oneness where we can do all things. There is absolutely no barriers for us.
In the prophecies talk about that,
Yes.
the shift and the change.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But it's real.
Yeah.
Ralph always says it's real. Everything's real.
Everything's real, without exception. There are no exceptions to reality, to the real of life. Everything's real in frames of reference, because you can perceive one thing one day and then go back and perceive it the next day differently, because all energy is in constant motion. And even as I look at this glass and say, well, yeah, I perceive this glass in this moment, but now the glass is completely changed. This molecular structure has completely changed itself. I'm holding it together with my idea. That's all that I'm perceiving is my idea of the glass, because all the energy is in constant motion. You look at it through an electron microscope, it's just energy like we are. But the only thing holding these objects together is an idea of our imagination that holds the illusion. And that's beautiful when you realize we're creators of our own world. We create everything ourselves. And so we have made a pact to go around and help wake people up and say, come on, man, have some fun with us, because we're having a ball. Wake up and have some fun. So we've been invited, and we've gone around on all kinds of lecture tours. And then we started going around on very, very high level people, expanded people in high places, friends of the Congress people and stuff, not directly but indirectly, to get them to change their perception, because their perceptions are so off base that they're causing things to uh, enter a state of chaos, which is also good because they're going to go down far enough until the chaos has to turn to beauty eventually. But it's the hard way. And what we want to show everybody is it's easy. You don't have to go there. If everything's easy. so, so that's where we are. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, not at all. In fact, I want more of this.
Oh.
You know, we were talking about believe. It's be and live.
Oh, that's right too. And
Be
realize.
live, yeah,
realize
yes. And
Realize.
realize,
Realize.
that's the pituitary gland.
Yeah.
You can look at these with these cameras and you just see 1, 2, 3 dimensional, if you're lucky. But if you look at, say, this cat from the realize, if I go into the center of my intuition, I can see this cat as many, many levels of consciousness, he's a very precious, beautiful thing that it's indescribable in words because I'm looking into a consciousness that is this cat and through this cat. So it is overwhelming, almost to the point of captivating my emotions to tears sometimes because it's so beautiful. And that's when you're seeing things with your real eyes, from your pituitary, or you're in harmony with your, I think they call it the kundalini, the vortices of your kundalinis are all lined up and focusing together, all the ducks in a row, I think they call it. And when you're there, man, it's just, whoa, it's incredible. And being here with you guys today is just incredible. And we thought we were going to be late, with all those thoughts. But see, we ignored them.
Well, and that's what I told you when we first talked on the phone.
us.
I was like, no, it's perfect.
Yeah, you encouraged us to be who and what we are, and the timing worked out perfectly. It's beautiful.
Something happened today that was really funny.
Baby? Hi, baby.
We wanted to have lunch, and we were going up to Crown King, and there were low bushes around, but no shade trees, and it was kind of warm. And so we had a picnic with us.
Beautiful.
And I said, Ralph said, would you want to pull over here? I said, no, just keep going. There's going to be a place for us. And I saw a group of trees kind of off in the distance, and I said, that's the place for us.
Well, before you even saw the group of trees, I saw nothing but desert for 20 miles. And I said, where, Marsha? You're not going to find any shaded trees around here. And then suddenly she said, that group of trees. And then I saw the group of trees. And then we drove there and we pulled into this beautiful oasis with running, bubbling water, a big pond with frogs. Right out of the ground with frogs and turtles
and fish
and fireflies. Everything was there, and we enjoyed our lunch in the shade on the tailgate of the SUV. It was marvelous, and that she's beginning to now help me have fun because she's creating and I'm creating, and it's becoming wonderful. Very, very wonderful.
And it's limitless too.
Limitless.
And our choice is limitation or opportunity, or that limitless opportunity. And once we change our pessimistic view of limit to the optimistic unlimitedness, the world offers us.
everything.
And where that thought comes from is really not the head.
No.
It's the heart.
No.
It's the love. It's the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had something else happen just last weekend. We met with people they want to meet Ralph quite frequently, and some of the people from the Tesla Tech group called and asked if we could meet that night. And we kind of were busy, but we said we would. We went and met at a restaurant in Mesa, and we had dinner. There were 5 of us, and we had dinner, and it was pretty noisy in the restaurant. So after we ate, we decided we'd go out on the patio, take our water, and just go sit so we could talk. Well, this was probably maybe 8:30. About maybe, I don't even know timing, but 11 or so, they came and asked us if we wanted anything more. They weren't even interrupting us. We were fine, and we said no, that we would, we would be fine. And the manager came and said, "Can I get you water or anything?" We said, "No, we knew that they were locking up and cleaning up and everything." She came out about a couple of minutes later with 5 bottles of water and said that we're closing now and you can stay as long as you want. We were on their patio. There were lights out there that they leave on probably all the time. And I just said, this is like magic. I mean, what restaurant's going to leave people on their patio to talk? And that same magic, you want to tell them about the car?
Well, we pulled into a full. This was called the Fat Greek. What fat?
The
Big Fat Greek restaurant. And it was packed. I mean, we couldn't even find a parking place. We pulled in, but inevitably, it's that calm knowingness, like, oh well, here's a parking place, and there was a parking place. We pulled in, and parked. And I took the last place in the whole.
It was full.
It was totally full, and there was cars coming in, going around, going out. Well, after we talked for these hours, and it was very stimulating conversation. And by the way, the one guy we were talking to wants to help with the spaceships. So we're going to be, on what level I don't know, but I know we'll be working together. But we talked.
Is he from his heart?
Yeah,
he's not looking for profit. He's
No.
looking for profit for humanity.
Right.
We are now able to pretty much tell where people are coming from, and it's amazing if they're wanting to make a profit for themselves. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
No,
It
any
just
way.
falls away. Yes, it falls away. It just isn't happening. That same kind of
Well,
thing.
we've been. I wanted to finish the car thing, in the parking lot. Well, I pulled up and found the only parking place, and after 5 hours of conversation, we got ready to leave, and the only 2 cars in the parking lot left, we had parked right beside their car.
And we didn't even
know it.
Car they was about being.
And we looked out in the parking lot, and there was just the 2 cars sitting there. I mean, just little things like that, but whoa, they make you feel good.
Yeah.
It's really good. And then what she was saying about what we do with the discs, I make hundreds of. We're on a Social Security. We're both retired, so and every month I take so much, and I buy discs, and I've got a copier and stuff, and I make these discs up, and I always give them away free, no charge. I love to give them away because I want the word to get out, and the girls have gone with me, Marsha and Ruthie, and they said, Ralph, you've got to stop this because we'll bring a whole stack of discs and put them out on the table and say, I want you to have these free information. And she said, and guys would come along and take stacks of them and stick them in their pocket and come back 5 minutes later and get another stack. And they said, Ralph, you've got to do something. And I said, well, I don't want to charge. And it was Marsha that suggested, well, then accept the donation. And the donation can go with, now I've got the answer to the donation, pay it forward to just whatever it is, just whatever they want to do. See, that's a better way than we were ever doing it. But they put a limited amount. How did you work that?
We asked for a donation. We told them that the information was free, but for the costs.
Just cover the cost of making the material.
So we asked for a donation of $10 per disc. And we did that for a long time, and one of the last lectures, Ralph said, I'm giving them for free. He and I went to the Area 51 to Rachel, Nevada, And he says, I'm giving these free. I said, fine, whatever you want to do. So he announced it during his lecture that the information was for the taking. And the donations that they gave without us asking for any donations were more than he had
ever got before.
gotten.
They were giving us $100 bills.
Good.
And I said, well, it's not necessary. Oh, yes, it is. And
Good.
it recovered our.
Well, he sends a disc and he pays the postage, and I said, you need to at least ask for postage. And he said, no. He said, I've been given this information freely.
To pay it forward.
And
I like that, pay it forward.
I think it's wonderful to do that. Just
Yeah.
like you're doing
Oh,
it.
I
And
do.
that's wonderful that you're actually going to tell people, pay it forward, pay it forward.
And you have to share it too.
Yes.
Tell them the little story
Hey.
that you want the energy to keep moving forward. And if they want to
Plant
return
the
it back to
seed.
you, or anybody, or if they want to put it into a fund that will help.
Help anybody, anywhere.
Yeah, do it.
Good.
And let
That's
me know.
perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
From now on, let's do that. From
Yes.
now on, all you have to do is pay it forward. That's all I ask.
And what it'll do is open their hearts.
Yeah.
And they'll realize, huh. Now here's a funny story for you. It might get too dark for the video, but who cares? We'll get the sound. Years ago, I was in Miami, and I had rarely ever been to Miami, and I went to this little place, and walking down the street, and there's a little bookstore there, and I pulled into the bookstore, and I immediately go over, and there's my book, and it's a book on Mother Teresa. And I was never really attracted to reading about Mother Teresa before, but it was a book that she wrote, and it was like an interview with her or something. But it was really thin, personal little book, and in it was a funny little story about this guy, one of the wealthiest guys in the world, show up to meet with her, and he's a businessman. He works in the old paradigm. He's got to know facts and figures and numbers, and I need to know. And he's got billions of dollars, and he wants to give her money. And he says, well, what's your budget? She says, I don't have a budget. What do you mean? Everything I get, I give away. That's my budget. I just give it all away. And he said, well, how can you operate? Well, I operate fine. I just give it all away. Well, he said, well, what happens when you don't get enough money to help people? Well, then they suffer. Because I don't have enough money, but I just do the best I can with what I get. And he says, well, how do I know how much to give? And she says, well, in order for anything to have any value, in order for any of this to have any value, you should know the pain that you're trying to alleviate with this money. So give as much money as you can give until it starts to hurt. And then give some more. Then you'll know the pain that you're relieving.
Wow.
Wow. Mother Teresa, thank you for that one.
Yeah, she did wonderful work.
Yeah.
But can you believe that?
Yeah.
And so use that too, because it's in sharing that we really grow. It's in sharing that we get love and get joy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want love, you give love. If you want something, you give something.
Yeah.
If whatever you desire, if you start to give it, it'll return back to you. And so it works with a smile. Try that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're depressed,
right.
fake a smile and go smile at someone who's also depressed.
Yeah.
And you'll watch them bleed, just
And
glow.
say hello to people, and sometimes it doesn't work, but if you keep saying hello, they soon will return it.
Yeah.
With a smile. Yeah.
It unages you. That joy unages you, and it changes your whole optimistic perspective that the whole world is good instead of crumbling. And once you do that, you see through those new eyes.
Yeah. Marsha's teaching me that, to smile more often. I do, but not often enough. And she waves at everybody on the, just everybody. She just waves at everybody. And I said, well, those guys got quads and they're tearing up the
Today
terrain.
he was saying
And I'm not really happy with them tearing up the terrain. She said, wave at them, say hello to them. And I'm having a little problem doing that, but I'm learning, okay, I'll wave. But it's she's been sharing that with me, and I watch the results that she gets. Some wave back, some don't, but within her, she's feeling good about everything she does. So she's keeping me going. Just amazing.
It's
The moon's
fun.
coming up. It's a big orange orb. I
Oh
just
my
have
God.
to tell you, you guys.
It is so good.
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna go on the roof.
Oh
I'm
my
gonna
gosh.
I'm gonna climb up on the roof.
Oh, this is
Oh,
beautiful.
okay.
I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
What time do you guys have the
Oh,
noon
it's
service?
whenever. Yeah, they're gonna be up there for a while. Yeah, Leo. Wow.
Well, you guys are incredible. I mean, it's like we're looking into a mirror of ourselves. You guys are, you're right up there.